All right, we're going to try to do this when we're reviewing some new information. We could put it out in a YouTube video and answer some questions that maybe we don't have time for during a morning briefing, but can get out some of the new information we want out there, as well as keep everyone on the same page. So today we're going to review SOP, Standard Operating Procedure 100-08, and that is fireground safety and personnel accountability procedures, primarily personnel accountability. We obviously know the scope is to make sure the safety of all of our personnel on scene are there and making sure we know their location at all times. All fire personnel shall adhere to these procedures to make sure that we know where everyone is during the entire fireground operations. And with this, why we're reviewing this one specifically is we have had changes with our accountability system, primarily moving to the passport system. And we will go over that at the end of this video as well, as I've talked to Lieutenant Thorson, who has been working with me on implementing this. So we'll be going that over. We go through over the small things during the SOP review portion. Some of the few things to remember and review during this particular SOP is that the incident commander may operate as the safety officer, especially on smaller incidents or until more personnel arrive. However, as an incident continues to progress and get larger, there will be a safety officer that gets assigned. It may not be personnel from our department, but we will make sure someone gets assigned to that and fill that role out on our checklists and our dry erase task management devices that we have in our apparatus, primarily the chief's buggy. So we may be putting someone in position of a safety officer that can act as the accountability officer as well. Those are things that we will designate as the incident progresses, but initially everything will be run through the incident commander. Although it is the incident commander's job to have accountability of all personnel on the fire ground at all times, it is the responsibility of the person that is leading that crew into the building to know where their personnel are at all times. So they're going to be the ones that are kind of implementing the accountability system to where it needs to go to the incident commander, safety officer, or accountability officer, and will be responsible for calling out during a par check based on the activity assigned. So if it is 16-9 doing fireground operations, that initial officer that's on 16-9 will be responsible for knowing where their personnel are and relaying that to accountability via our passport system and via radio if anything changes from that planned action. There will be the 20-minute personal accountability reports, the PAR reports that go out during a fireground operation. Again, those will be the responsibility of that team leader as we continue to progress through an incident, or as anyone has probably seen on any of our fireground responses, that it's not always the officer that ends up having that as we get more crews and off duty, often firefighters from Department 16 will be in charge of a crew, even if they are not an officer. It'll be that person who's in charge of that crew to make sure that they give that accountability report. So keep that in mind when we're listening to a radio. Not only are we going to do those every 20 minutes, but if we would have to evacuate for any reason, that we're going to make sure not only do we do our evacuation procedures to get everything and get everyone out of the building, but we're going to immediately follow that up with a PAR report. And the same time that we do any sort of tactical change, if we're going from offensive to defensive operations or going from rescue and have found somebody, we're probably going to do a personal accountability report to make sure all personnel are accounted for before we re-engage in any operations on scene. If any fire personnel are reporting to a different area or exiting the structure, it is the responsibility of that crew's leader, most oftentimes an officer, to report that to the safety officer, accountability officer, incident commander of where they're going. If they're coming out of the building, for example, to go to rehab, and letting anyone know that it would be their responsibility to relay that information forward. Additionally, here at the Meadville Fire Department, we do utilize a 2-bottle rule, meaning that after expending 2 cylinders of air through interior operations, you do have to report to rehab. And when reporting to rehab, the firefighters shall not return to the fireground operations until released by the rehab personnel. So just keep that in mind, that we do try to enforce that as much as we can to make sure that we are safe on the fireground. We're next going to review the passport accountability systems and the verbiage in SOP 100-08. And then we're going to go out and actually look at the accountability passport system, how we use it, and how it'll be implemented to try to give a little bit of a well-rounded approach to it and try to answer any of the questions that we may have. So again, this is what's considered the passport style system. Each firefighter, EMS person, officer, whatever, will be issued 5 tags. We may need more, we may have to replace them as we go, but originally we are issued 5 tags. The officers will be colored red. The firefighters will have a black tag. EMS only personnel will have a blue background tag, and any chief officers will have a white tag. There will be 2 company passports that'll be in each of the apparatus and let us know who is responding on that apparatus, a red one and a yellow one. And that's considered the passport because that's going to be how we travel on scene or move to any of our areas. The red one will stay with the rig. Try to keep it that way. Red rig, that stays there and it has everything listed. The yellow passport is what's going to go to the IC, safety officer, accountability, whoever we've determined is going to be in charge of personnel management on the scene. When we do that, they'll take the officer, we'll take the yellow passport and give it to the IC, or we'll go down further and kind of address some of those things. When we are riding and putting our stuff on, it's our position that we are on for the day. So if we're at a 5-man shift, 4 people will be responding in 16-9, 1 person on the ambulance. Our accountability tags and our passport system, when we set that up in the morning, will work in conjunction with that of how it would be if we were responding to a structure fire within the city of Meadville. As we report for duty, rather than taking our old clips and putting them on the ring within the apparatus, we're now going to place them on both the red and the yellow accountability systems in our assigned piece of apparatus. So on that passport, we'll be putting each of our tags. The tags will be listed in a specific order. Whoever is riding the officer's seat and acting as that officer will be placed first on that tag. So it'll normally be a red tag on there, especially for the fire suppression apparatus. Next down will be the driver. The driver will be flipped upside down. That's to let us know who's responsible for that rig, if we need to move that apparatus, or if we had an issue come up and have to directly speak to them, we know who's in charge of that piece of apparatus. Firefighter 1 will then be listed below the driver, and firefighter 2. The benefit with that being that as we bounce between different pieces of apparatus for different responses, we should be able to utilize the same riding assignments. 1, so that we know where we are, but 2 is just so we have some of that consistency. When we're doing this, we don't need to do the passport system for every call. The main reasons we are using the passport accountability system are for the large-scale incidents, structure fires, long-term hazmat scenes, active shooter, or anything that really there is a defined IDLH in which the IC or safety officer wants to start accountability. So maybe this is a prolonged extrication. Maybe it is in a secluded area for a wildland fire. As we stated earlier, the red passport will stay with the rig. The yellow one will then be given to the OIC. If we arrive on scene as the first arriving units, we're not always expecting the officer to come and give it to the OIC as they're doing their initial 360 and setting up their initial incident action plan. With that, the officer can take the yellow passport out and hand it to the driver or place it themselves on the Velcro that's on the pump panel of the lead apparatus. Both of our fire suppression apparatus do have a piece of Velcro that we can stick those to. It'll be the responsibility of the officer to make sure that that is given to the driver, either to place onto the pump panel or for them to do themselves. Whoever's in another fire suppression piece of apparatus arriving will also place theirs onto that. Same thing with any of our medical response units. So if 16-9 and 16-17 arrive on scene, the officer can give it to the driver. Driver's going to place it on that Velcro panel since they're going to go there anyway. And 16-17's personnel, whoever may be on that piece of apparatus, is going to grab their yellow passport and place it on there as well. If I arrive, for example, as the OIC, I will then go over and grab those 2 passports to place on my accountability board, and we'll be able to know where everyone is operating and may just have questions of what their assignment is, but I'll definitely know who is the personnel responding there. So that's kind of one of the changes that we have, is there's a little bit of tasks that need to be accomplished as we arrive on scene, instead of just the items hanging there of knowing who's all on the scene. Very similar procedure when we go out of town. We'll take our tags and give them to the officer. Our tags being the little Velcro pieces that sit underneath the back of our helmet. We'll take those off and hand them up to the officer when responding out of town. The officer may not be an officer if we're responding out of town based on our new SOPs. So whoever is riding the seat will be responsible for collecting 2 tags per person, just so we have the ability to put it both on the red one that stays with the rig for our accountability, and the yellow one that's going to go to the OIC or accountability officer for any scene that we're responding to. We do have the like our old tags that have the clip on them. There is a Velcro covered one of those that we can stick the yellow passport that has our crews listed on there, and give that to accountability if any of the other departments have not gone to our accountability system. Again, this is what works best for us. We now can find a way to work into their system without having to carry multiple tags or change how we're doing anything that way. It is the officer's responsibility and the duty officer's responsibility to make sure that everyone is complying with the accountability system, that there is accountability placed on the rig each day. This lets us know not only who is there, but who may be responding in any of these emergencies. So officers, make sure that you are making the firefighters and other personnel place their tags onto the passport associated with what rig they'll be responding to in the event of a structure fire. If we were to go out of town and it's a firefighter in the front seat, they are essentially acting as the company officer. This goes into our officer development that we've preached for a few years and trying to get everyone ready to that next step. If you have the responsibility to sit in that seat, and that are the responsibility of having that crew kind of work under you when operating out of town, then you must make sure those personnel are giving those tags up. That's part of the development process and a part of the long-term evaluation process that we're going to have for new officers as they come up. So making sure that we're doing just as an officer would, regardless of what color our helmet shield is. So to add some of that consistency. We'll go out, we'll show everybody the pieces of our accountability system that we use. We'll talk a little bit about how it'll function, and hopefully we can start to answer some of these questions so we can go live with our accountability system. Individual issued tags will be placed on the provided Velcro underneath the back brim of your helmet. They'll be able to be away from the heat in that location. We'll be able to keep them and use them whether we're responding out to different incidents or need to move any for different assignments or anything that may come up, or just to have some spares in case one would get lost, broken, or damaged. As personnel arrive each morning, they will place their name tags, their actual accountability tags, onto the passports listed for their assigned piece of apparatus. Both the red and the yellow passport should be listed in about in the same area. As that, the first one listed will be the officer, followed by the driver, which will be upside down, firefighter 1, and then firefighter 2. The red passport will stay with the rig throughout the duration and stay pretty much in the same location. The yellow one is the one that is to go to OIC. If OIC is not there, we can give it to the driver, or the officer can place it on the pump panel. We'll show you where that gets placed so the OIC will know where to grab it, or we have accountability until someone establishes exterior command. The passports are easily removed via Velcro, so we'll just take that off, and if we're going to give it to the driver or place it onto the pump panel ourselves, we'll be able to do so. Our apparatus will now have a piece of Velcro above the pump panel, listed somewhere that's easy to find. Whoever gets out from the lead apparatus and the other apparatus following, if an OIC is not present, is just going to place theirs onto the Velcro. We can then list every Meadville fire apparatus coming in or other additional units that may be utilizing the same system. When an OIC arrives or personnel establish exterior command, they'll be able to then grab them and place them onto the accountability board. It does not matter if the driver or the officer places them here, but they must be placed prior to us engaging in full operations. If we're on a 5-man shift and the paramedic is driving 16-17 while 4 personnel are in the ladder, their names will go upside down, listed as they are the driver. If there would be 2 people on the piece of apparatus, and say the medic is in charge of that rig as the officer, they will then be placed like so with their partner being upside down below them. Same way as with the fire suppression equipment. When they arrive on scene, whoever is the officer or the only person on the apparatus will take the yellow and either give it to the OIC or place it on the pump panel Velcro. When responding out of town, the tags will be placed forward and the officer will be able to start listing them in the exact same order that they would be on our rigs if we're responding into town. Here is a old traditional style clip with Velcro on it. From here, we'll be able to take our passport, place it on there with our names, and give this to the primary agency's accountability officer, OIC, utilizing the same clip method of accountability as previous. Ours will all just be listed on one.